The holographic chamber of the Galactic Council sprawled like an amphitheater of impossible geometry, its crystalline walls shifting with colors that human eyes could barely comprehend. Delegates from 17 different species occupied their designated platforms, each representing millions of years of evolutionary history, technological advancement, and cosmic exploration. Ambassador Elena Rodriguez stood out immediately, not because of any dramatic posture or exotic attire, but because of her remarkable composure. Where other new species typically arrived with a mixture of awe and nervous energy, she carried herself with a calm precision that seemed to unsettle the long-established council members. Archon Xerex of the Luminarian Collective was the first to speak, his translucent form flickering slightly as his multi-chambered vocal apparatus produced a sound that simultaneously translated into every known galactic language. Humanity represents the most recent addition to our interstellar community, he began, his tone a mixture of patronage and mild curiosity. Your species has demonstrated interesting potential in your initial exploration of local space, but you remain quite young. Elena's slight smile betrayed nothing. The small data crystal she held between her fingers caught the ambient light, its seemingly ordinary surface a stark contrast to the ornate communication devices surrounding her. She knew exactly what this moment represented, a carefully choreographed introduction that would challenge every expectation the Galactic Council had about humanity. To her left, Representative Krell of the Morphing Consortium leaned forward, his multiple eyes blinking in a complex pattern that suggested skepticism. The Morphines were known for their ability to read micro-expressions and subtle behavioral cues, and they were studying Elena with an intensity that would have made most diplomats uncomfortable. "We have reviewed your preliminary reports," Krell stated, his translator rendering his words with a flat, analytical tone. "Your species' technological progression is interesting. Unusually rapid, but still primitive by galactic standards." Elena's fingers moved almost imperceptibly, activating the data crystal. A holographic display erupted around her, transforming the chamber's atmosphere. Instead of the typical technological presentations, schematics, star charts, or resource analyses, the projection told a story. Images flickered to life. Scenes of human innovation that defied the Council's expectations. Quantum computing breakthroughs achieved in decades that would have taken other species centuries. Adaptive medical technologies that could rewrite genetic codes in real time. Computational systems that learned and evolved with a speed that bordered on the impossible. The council members shifted in their seats. What had begun as a routine introduction was quickly becoming something else entirely. Archon Xerex's translucent form flickered more rapidly, a sign of genuine surprise among the Luminarians. "These projections," he began, then paused, a rare moment of uncertainty for a being who had overseen diplomatic encounters for multiple galactic generations. Elena's presentation continued, showing not just technological achievements, but the underlying human capacity for innovation. Scenes of problem-solving that demonstrated a cognitive flexibility unlike anything in the known galaxy. A species that didn't just adapt to challenges but seemed to thrive on them, finding creative solutions where other civilizations would have stagnated. Representative Krell's multiple eyes had stopped their complex blinking pattern. Instead, they were fixed on the holographic display with an intensity that suggested a fundamental recalibration of understanding. "We come not to impress," Elena finally spoke, her voice clear and measured, "but to participate. Humanity understands that true progress is collaborative, not competitive." The data crystal continued its presentation, revealing just enough to intrigue but not overwhelm. Hints of technologies that suggested humanity was far more prepared for interstellar engagement than anyone had anticipated. In that moment, something fundamental changed in the Galactic Council chamber. The patronizing atmosphere dissolved, replaced by a growing sense of genuine curiosity. And something else, a subtle undercurrent of cautious respect. Archon Xerex leaned back, his form stabilizing. "Perhaps," he said slowly, "we have much to discuss." Elena's slight smile remained unchanged. The first move had been made. and the game was just beginning. The research complex on Ganymede Station looked like nothing more than a routine scientific facility from the outside. Massive transparent domes connected intricate laboratory sections, with researchers moving between sections through pressurized corridors. But beneath the seemingly mundane exterior, a complex network of the most brilliant human minds was working with unprecedented coordination. Dr. Aria Chen stood before a holographic display that stretched 3 stories high, her fingers dancing across multiple interactive interfaces. Around her, a team of researchers from disciplines that would have seemed incompatible just decades ago worked in perfect synchronization. Quantum physicists collaborated with xenobiologists. Computational linguists shared data with advanced materials engineers. Cultural anthropologists worked alongside military strategists. "We're not just preparing," Aria muttered to her colleague, Dr. Marcus Rodriguez. "We're completely reimagining our approach to interstellar engagement." The holographic display showed intricate models of potential galactic scenarios. Each model was a living, breathing simulation that adapted in real time, learning from millions of hypothetical interactions. Unlike traditional military or diplomatic preparations, these simulations weren't just predictive. They were evolutionary. Marcus nodded, adjusting a complex neural interface that connected directly to the simulation systems. "The Galactic Council thinks they understand us," he said softly. "They see our relatively short history of space exploration and assume we're naive. They don't realize we've been studying them for decades." On one section of the display, a detailed network of relationships between different galactic species began to take shape. Ancient rivalries, economic dependencies, cultural tensions, all mapped out with a precision that would have been impossible using traditional intelligence gathering methods. A young researcher named Kai Lin approached, carrying a portable data matrix that seemed to pulse with an almost living energy. "We've completed the latest iteration of the adaptive communication protocols," she reported. Her eyes gleamed with the excitement of someone who knew they were on the cusp of something extraordinary. The communication protocols were more than just translation systems. They were complex neural networks designed to understand not just the language of other species, but their underlying psychological and cultural frameworks. Each interaction would be a learning experience, with the system becoming more sophisticated with every exchange. Dr. Chen pulled up a series of technological schematics that would have looked like pure abstraction to an untrained eye. Spacecraft designs that could reconfigure themselves mid-flight. Defensive systems that didn't just protect, but actively learned and adapted. Computational frameworks that blurred the line between technology and intelligence. "Our greatest strength," Aria explained to a group of incoming researchers, "is our ability to see connections where others see boundaries. We're not building weapons or defensive systems. We're creating adaptive intelligence." Marcus brought up a historical analysis overlay. It showed how human innovation had consistently defied expectations. From the rapid technological progression of the 20th century to the breakthrough in sustainable fusion technology, humanity had a track record of achieving the impossible. The team worked in carefully controlled shifts, each member understanding their role in a much larger strategy. This wasn't just a research facility. It was the nerve center of humanity's most ambitious project. Every simulation, every prototype, every theoretical model was a piece of an intricate puzzle. Outside the complex, Ganymede's icy surface reflected the distant light of Jupiter. To any external observer, it would seem like just another scientific outpost. But within those walls, the future of human interaction with the galaxy was being meticulously crafted. Kai approached Dr. Chen with another update. "The latest cultural adaptation algorithms are showing a 98.7% predictive accuracy for potential diplomatic scenarios," she reported. The number was almost casual, but it represented a level of understanding that no previous civilization had achieved. Dr. Chen allowed herself a small smile. The Galactic Council believed they were dealing with a young, inexperienced species. They had no idea of the depth of preparation happening right under their collective consciousness. "We're not just preparing for a potential conflict," Marcus said, watching the complex simulations dance across the holographic display. We're preparing to fundamentally change how interstellar relationships work. As another shift of researchers entered the facility, the work continued, quietly, methodically, with a sense of purpose that went far beyond traditional military or diplomatic preparation. The universe was about to be surprised. The Resource Allocation Conference seemed like any other routine galactic gathering. Delegates from various species filled the massive amphitheater, their translation devices humming softly as they prepared for another bureaucratic session of negotiating mineral rights and territorial claims. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stepped onto the central platform, her presentation module looking deceptively simple. A small, sleek device no larger than a standard datapad rested in her hands. The Morphine representatives exchanged knowing glances, preparing to analyze her every micro-expression. Distinguished members of the Galactic Council, Elena began, her voice clear and measured. Today, I'll share a perspective on technological development that may challenge your existing understanding. With a subtle gesture, the presentation module came to life. But this was no ordinary holographic display. The projection began to shift and breathe, almost like a living entity. Intricate designs of spacecraft materialized, but these were unlike anything the Council had seen before. The first model showed a starship that seemed to defy the fundamental principles of space engineering. Its exterior shifted and rippled, molecular structures rearranging in real time. Where traditional spacecraft had rigid designs, this vessel looked like liquid metal given purpose and intelligence. Archon Zirex leaned forward, his translucent form flickering with genuine curiosity. The ship's hull was changing its molecular composition faster than any known scanning technology could track. It wasn't just adaptive, it was alive in a way that challenged the very definition of technological design. What you're seeing, Elena continued, is a spacecraft with a computational matrix that extends beyond its physical structure. It doesn't just respond to environmental challenges, it anticipates them. A series of simulations began to play out. The ship encountered multiple space phenomena: gravitational anomalies, radiation storms, micro-asteroid fields. Where other vessels would require careful navigation or suffer damage, this human design simply adapted. Its hull changed density, redirected energy, and restructured itself with a fluidity that seemed almost organic. The crystalline consortium representatives began to exchange rapid communication bursts. Their species was known for advanced material sciences, yet what they were witnessing pushed the boundaries of their understanding. Elena moved to the next demonstration. A computational system materialized, its structure nothing like the linear, predictable networks used by other civilizations. This was a three-dimensional matrix that seemed to think and breathe. Quantum computing had been theoretical for most species. For humans, it was becoming fundamental infrastructure. Our computational systems don't just process information, she explained. They learn. They evolve. Each interaction becomes a part of their fundamental structure. The display showed the system solving complex mathematical problems, but it was more than calculation. The computational matrix was actively learning, its solution pathways changing in real time. It wasn't following preset algorithms, it was creating new methods of problem solving with each interaction. Representative Krell of the Morphine Consortium could no longer maintain his diplomatic composure. "Impossible," he muttered, his multiple eyes tracking the demonstration with intense concentration. The final demonstration left the entire conference hall in stunned silence. A communication technology that wasn't just a translation device, but a complete cultural interpretation system. It didn't just convert words, it translated context, emotional nuance, and cultural subtext. Elena displayed a conversation between humans and a completely alien species, where traditional translation would produce stilted, mechanical communication. This system created a fluid, nuanced dialogue that captured the essence of communication beyond mere words. "Technology is more than tools," Elena said, her final words hanging in the air. "It's an extension of understanding, of imagination." As the presentation concluded, Something fundamental had changed in the conference hall. The patronizing attitudes of the previous encounters had evaporated. In their place was a growing sense of respect, and something that looked very much like concern. The Galactic Council had expected another routine presentation from a young spacefaring species. Instead, they had witnessed a fundamental reimagining of technological potential. Humanity had just changed the conversation. The strategy room was a marvel of human innovation, a space that blended cutting-edge technology with an almost artistic approach to information management. Holographic displays hung in three-dimensional layers, each one a living, breathing representation of galactic political dynamics. Marcus Rodriguez stood at the center of the room, his fingers dancing across multiple interaction points. Years of research had led to this moment, a comprehensive understanding of the Galactic Council's intricate political landscape that went far beyond traditional diplomatic analysis. "It's not about conflict," he explained to the team of strategists surrounding him. "It's about understanding the fundamental connections that most species miss." The primary display showed a complex network of relationships between galactic species, but this was no ordinary political map. Each connection pulsed with life, showing economic dependencies, historical tensions, and cultural nuances that most diplomatic systems would never detect. Dr. Aria Chen approached, bringing up a series of historical data points. "Look here," she said, highlighting a series of seemingly unrelated diplomatic incidents from the past century. "Most species see these as isolated events. We see the underlying patterns." The display began to transform. What initially looked like random political interactions started to reveal intricate connections. A trade dispute between the Morphine Consortium and the Luminarian Collective from decades ago suddenly showed its connection to a resource allocation conflict near the galactic rim. "Traditional diplomacy is like playing chess," Marcus explained. "We're playing a game that hasn't even been invented yet." A young strategist named Kylan brought up a new layer of analysis. Cultural communication patterns, economic flow models, and technological exchange histories began to interweave. The display looked like a living organism, with connections forming and dissolving in real time. The room was a perfect blend of human disciplines. Quantum physicists worked alongside cultural anthropologists. Military strategists collaborated with linguists and economic analysts. Each team member brought a unique perspective, creating a holistic approach to understanding galactic dynamics. "The Galactic Council operates on a model of static power," Aria explained. "They believe in fixed hierarchies and established political structures. We understand that true power is adaptive." The display showed how human analysts had mapped out potential diplomatic scenarios with unprecedented depth. Each projection wasn't just a prediction. It was a living simulation that could adapt and learn from new information in real time. Marcus pulled up a series of communication protocols that went far beyond traditional diplomatic channels. These were adaptive systems that could read between the lines, understanding the unspoken tensions and hidden motivations behind every galactic interaction. "We're not just analyzing data," he said softly. "We're understanding the story behind the data." A breakthrough moment came when Kai discovered a series of interconnected economic dependencies that most species had overlooked. The Crystalline Consortium, believed to be an independent economic power, was actually deeply vulnerable due to a complex network of resource exchanges. The strategic room was more than a planning center. It was a testament to human potential, a space where interdisciplinary thinking transformed raw information into strategic insight. "Our strength," Elena Rodriguez had often said, "is our ability to see connections where others see boundaries." The team worked with a precision that bordered on orchestration. Each member understood their role in a much larger strategy. They weren't just preparing for potential conflicts, they were reshaping the entire concept of galactic interaction. As the day progressed, the holographic displays continued to evolve. Each new piece of information was immediately integrated, creating a living, breathing model of galactic political dynamics. The Galactic Council believed they understood the rules of interstellar politics. Humanity was about to show them that the game was changing, and they were writing entirely new rules. The star system designated XR 379 had been a point of contention for generations. Vast mineral-rich asteroid fields drifted silently, a prize that multiple galactic species had long contested. No one expected the first major confrontation to unfold the way it did. Commander Elena Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the HMS Horizon, a vessel that defied every conventional understanding of spacecraft design. The bridge itself was a marvel of human engineering, an organic, adaptive environment that responded to the crew's needs almost before they realized those needs existed. Incoming signals from the Morphian and Luminarian fleets, Lieutenant Kailin reported, her fingers dancing across a holographic interface that seemed to breathe and pulse with information. Their positioning for traditional engagement protocols. The communication systems aboard the Horizon were more than simple transmission devices. They were complex analytical platforms that could read between the lines of every transmission, understanding not just the words, but the underlying intentions and emotional contexts. External sensors began to track the approaching fleets. The Morphian ships moved with their characteristic geometric precision, angular vessels that represented centuries of refined military doctrine. The Luminarian support craft created intricate defensive formations, each ship moving with a synchronicity that had intimidated countless species. But something was different this time. Adaptive response protocol initiated, Elena said quietly. The words were more a confirmation than a command. The Horizon's computational matrix was already analyzing potential scenarios, developing strategies that would evolve in real time. The first wave of traditional weapons fire should have been devastating. Morphian particle cannons capable of dismantling entire space stations prepared to unleash their full potential. Luminarian quantum disruptors charged with enough energy to shred molecular structures. What happened next would be studied by military strategists for generations. The human vessels didn't just defend. They anticipated. Where other species would have blocked or countered, the human fleet began to reshape the entire battlefield. Their ships moved with a fluidity that seemed to defy the fundamental laws of space combat. One Morphian destroyer found its most powerful weapon redirected. Not destroyed, not blocked. Simply guided away by a complex gravitational manipulation that seemed to bend the very fabric of space. The weapon discharged harmlessly, its energy dispersed in a way that looked almost like an elegant dance. Kai's analysis systems were working overtime. "They're not fighting," she reported, her voice a mixture of excitement and professional calm. "We're solving a complex spatial problem." The Luminarian support craft found their perfectly choreographed formations suddenly meaningless. Human vessels didn't just break their formations, they'd rendered the entire concept of formation irrelevant. Each human ship became a dynamic node in a living, adaptive network. Traditional military doctrine is a language, Elena explained to her crew. And we're having an entirely different conversation. Quantum communication systems allowed instantaneous coordination that went beyond simple tactical exchanges. The human fleet moved as a single intelligent organism. Each vessel was both an individual unit and part of a larger collective intelligence. Dr. Marcus Rodriguez, serving as the mission's lead strategic analyst, watched the engagement from a secondary command center. "This isn't about destruction," he noted to his team. "It's about demonstrating a fundamentally different approach to conflict." The engagement lasted less than 17 standard minutes. When it concluded, no ships had been destroyed. No lives had been lost. The mineral-rich asteroid fields remained untouched. But everything had changed. The Morphian and Luminarian fleets retreated, not in defeat, but in a state of complete bewilderment. Their most sophisticated military strategies had been rendered obsolete by an approach they couldn't even comprehend. "We didn't fight a battle," Elena said softly as the Horizon systems began their post-engagement analysis. "We solved a complex problem that they didn't even realize existed." As communication logs were compiled and strategic analyses began, one thing became crystal clear. Humanity had just redefined the entire concept of military engagement. They hadn't just won a conflict, They had changed the fundamental language of interaction. The universe was about to learn that conflict could be something entirely different from what anyone had imagined. The communications center of the Galactic Council headquarters hummed with an unusual tension. Holographic displays flickered with intercepted human communications, each transmission presenting a puzzle that defied traditional analysis. Dr. Aria Chen sat at the center of a complex neural interface, her fingers moving almost imperceptibly as she guided the most advanced translation and interpretation systems in known space. Around her, a team of the galaxy's best communication specialists worked with increasing frustration. "It's not just language," she murmured, more to herself than to her colleagues. "It's an entirely different approach to communication." The human transmissions were unlike anything the Council had encountered. Each message seemed to operate on multiple levels simultaneously. What appeared to be a simple diplomatic communication would contain layers of meaning that shifted and transformed as they were analyzed. Representative Krell of the Morphine Consortium leaned over the data streams, his multiple eyes working overtime to catch nuanced details. The Morphians prided themselves on their ability to read between the lines, to understand the subtexts of communication. But these human transmissions were something else entirely. A particularly intricate transmission began to unfold. On the surface, it appeared to be a routine resource allocation request. But as the translation systems worked, something extraordinary emerged. The communication was simultaneously a diplomatic overture, a complex mathematical problem, and a form of cultural exchange. "They're not just sending a message," one of the junior analysts said, her voice a mixture of confusion and admiration. "They're creating a shared understanding." Kai Lin, who had been seconded to the Council as a human liaison, watched the analysis with a subtle smile. The communication systems developed by human researchers were designed to do more than translate words. They were built to translate context, emotion, and potential. The psychological warfare was happening in ways that went far beyond traditional conflict. Humans weren't trying to defeat the other species. They were trying to fundamentally reshape the way communication and interaction worked. A breakthrough came when Dr. Chen discovered the true nature of the human communication protocols. Each transmission was a living, adaptive system. It didn't just convey information. It learned from every interaction. The messages themselves were evolving intelligence, capable of adjusting their approach based on the recipient's response. Representative Krell's communication analysis team became increasingly frustrated. Their most sophisticated decryption systems were being outmaneuvered at every turn. Where they expected to find hidden meanings, they found complex layers of collaborative potential. "This isn't about winning," Aria explained to the Council's senior strategists. "It's about creating a new form of interaction." The human approach challenged fundamental assumptions about communication, conflict, and cooperation. Traditional diplomatic channels relied on fixed protocols, established hierarchies, and predictable responses. Humanity was introducing a fluid, adaptive model that transformed with each interaction. Intercepted communications revealed a stunning approach to conflict resolution. Where other species would escalate tensions, humans seemed to be solving problems before they fully emerge. Diplomatic challenges were being addressed through a combination of advanced technology, deep cultural understanding, and an almost intuitive approach to complex systems. The most sophisticated artificial intelligence systems in the Galactic Council began to show signs of what could only be described as confusion. The human communication patterns didn't follow any recognizable algorithm. They were more like living conversations, capable of adapting and evolving in real time. "They're not just communicating," one senior analyst muttered. "They're creating connections." As hours turned into days, the Council's communication analysis teams found themselves in uncharted territory. The human approach was dismantling established communication paradigms without any apparent aggressive intent. Kai Lin watched the analysis unfold, understanding what her colleagues were only beginning to realize. Humanity wasn't just participating in galactic communication. They were reimagining what communication could be. The psychological battlefield was unlike anything in galactic history. No weapons had been fired. No territories had been invaded, yet everything was changing. The Galactic Council was about to learn that the most powerful form of engagement might not be about control, but about understanding. The Grand Assembly Hall of the Galactic Council had witnessed countless pivotal moments in cosmic history. Massive crystalline structures arched overhead, reflecting the holographic displays that told the stories of civilizations rising and falling. But today, something fundamentally different was happening. Ambassador Elena Rodriguez stood at the center of the hall, not as a conqueror, but as a catalyst. The representatives of 17 different species watched her with a mixture of apprehension, curiosity, and a growing sense of recognition. Archon Xerex of the Luminarian Collective was the first to break the silence. "You have challenged everything we understood about interstellar engagement," he proclaimed, his translucent form flickering with an emotion that bordered on respect. The transformation was not about military conquest. It was about reimagining the very structure of galactic cooperation. Holographic displays began to show a new model of interaction, one that didn't rely on fixed hierarchies or traditional power structures. Dr. Marcus Rodriguez stepped forward, bringing up a comprehensive analysis that laid bare the fundamental flaws in the existing galactic governance model. Resource allocation, diplomatic communication, technological exchange. Each system was shown to be rigidly inefficient, bound by centuries of calcified protocols. "We're not here to replace your systems," Marcus explained. "We're here to help you evolve them." The most radical aspect of the human approach was its fundamental belief in collaborative potential. Where other species saw competition, humans saw opportunity for mutual growth. Each challenge was reframed as a shared problem to be solved, rather than a conflict to be won. Representative Krell of the Morphine Consortium studied the presentations with intense concentration. The human analysis was dismantling established power structures not through force, but through a comprehensive understanding of interconnected systems. Kai Lin brought forward a series of adaptive governance models. These weren't theoretical constructs, but living systems that could evolve in real time. Traditional diplomatic channels were replaced by dynamic communication networks that could respond to changing galactic conditions with unprecedented speed and flexibility. The most profound moment came when Elena revealed the core of humanity's approach. It wasn't about dominance or control. It was about creating a galactic ecosystem where every species could thrive. "Power is not a zero-sum game," she stated. The simple sentence hung in the air, challenging centuries of established galactic political thinking. Technological demonstrations followed. Adaptive communication systems that could bridge cultural divides. Resource allocation models that prioritized collective development over individual gain. Conflict resolution protocols that transformed potential confrontations into collaborative opportunities. The Crystalline Consortium, known for their rigid technological hierarchies, found themselves particularly challenged. Their entire system of technological exchange was being reimagined before their eyes. Dr. Aria Chen presented a comprehensive analysis of how human-developed systems could help each species address its most fundamental challenges. For the Morphians, it was about creating more flexible communication networks. For the Luminarians, it was developing more adaptive governance models. "We're not offering a solution," Aria explained. "We're offering a method of continuous improvement." The transformation was subtle yet profound. The Galactic Council wasn't being replaced, it was being evolved. Human representatives weren't taking control. They were helping to create a more responsive, adaptive system of galactic cooperation. As the presentations concluded, something remarkable happened. Representatives who had entered as potential adversaries were now engaged in genuine dialogue. The rigid boundaries between species began to dissolve, replaced by a growing sense of collective potential. Kai Lin watched the interactions, understanding the deeper significance. This wasn't just a political shift. It was a fundamental reimagining of how intelligent species could interact. The final holographic display showed a dynamic, interconnected model of galactic cooperation. It was alive, breathing, constantly evolving. No fixed points of control. No immutable hierarchies. just a complex, adaptive system of mutual understanding. "We are not here to lead," Alina said in her closing remarks. "We are here to collaborate." The universe had just witnessed a revolution, not of conquest, but of understanding. The research station orbiting the neutral zone between three major galactic territories represented something entirely new. Researchers from 17 different species worked side by side, their collaborative spaces designed to break down every previous barrier of communication and understanding. Dr. Elena Rodriguez walked through the central collaboration hub, watching as teams that would have been impossible to imagine just months ago worked together with unprecedented synergy. A Morphean quantum physicist discussed computational models with a luminary and cultural anthropologist. A crystalline consortium engineer collaborated with a human systems designer on adaptive infrastructure projects. "This is more than a research station," Elena said softly to Dr. Marcus Rodriguez, who was reviewing the latest collaborative outputs. "This is a blueprint for a different way of existing." The station itself was a marvel of adaptive design. Its very structure changed to accommodate different physiological needs. Atmospheric zones shifted seamlessly. Communication interfaces adapted in real time, bridging linguistic and cultural gaps that had seemed insurmountable just months before. Kai Lin was leading a team developing new communication protocols. What had begun as a diplomatic challenge had transformed into a fundamental reimagining of how intelligent species could interact. Each breakthrough was a collaborative effort, with every species contributing unique perspectives. The most profound changes weren't technological, they were cultural. The Galactic Council no longer operated as a rigid hierarchical structure. Instead, it had become a dynamic network of collaboration, resource allocation, technological exchange, and diplomatic communication had been completely redesigned. No single species held absolute power. Instead, a fluid, adaptive system of mutual support had emerged. Dr. Aria Chen presented the latest comprehensive analysis. The economic models they had developed showed something remarkable. Collaborative development was proving far more efficient than competitive expansion. Species that had been economic rivals were now finding unprecedented opportunities in shared research and development. "We're not eliminating competition," Aria explained during a station-wide presentation. "We're transforming it into something more productive." The technological breakthroughs were staggering. Adaptive communication systems could now bridge gaps between species that had seemed insurmountable. Conflict resolution protocols transformed potential confrontations into collaborative problem-solving opportunities. Representative Krell of the Morphean Consortium reflected on the transformation. What had begun as a potential conflict had become something far more significant. The human approach hadn't conquered. It had invited collaboration. A young researcher from the Luminarian species approached Alina. "We used to see diplomacy as a zero-sum game," she said. "Now we understand it's about collective potential." The station's central database told the story of their progress. Thousands of joint research projects, hundreds of collaborative technological developments, a growing network of understanding that transcended previous limitations. Marcus brought up a holographic display showing the network of collaborative projects. It looked like a living organism, dynamic, interconnected, constantly evolving. Each connection represented a breakthrough, a moment of mutual understanding. Kai Lin's communication research had revealed something profound. The adaptive systems they had developed weren't just translating languages. They were creating a new form of collective intelligence. Each interaction became an opportunity for mutual growth. The most radical transformation was happening at the most fundamental level. Species that had been isolated for millennia were now sharing knowledge, culture, and potential. The rigid boundaries that had defined galactic interactions were dissolving. "We're not creating a unified system," Alina often explained. "We're creating a collaborative ecosystem." As the station continued its work, something beautiful emerged. It wasn't about one species dominating another. It was about recognizing the unique potential of every intelligent form of life. The final holographic display showed a dynamic model of galactic interaction. No fixed points of control. No immutable hierarchies. just a complex, adaptive system of mutual understanding. Archon Zirex of the Luminarian Collective approached Alina, his translucent form reflecting the collaborative light of the station. "We expected conflict," he said. "We found something far more powerful." Humanity had come to the stars not to conquer, but to connect. Not to dominate, but to understand. The universe was learning a new language, the language of collaborative potential.